One of the important things to understand about activating with Yun, especially off of attacks and specials like Shoulder, is that each different thing that you do, depending on if your opponent is standing or crouching, and if they are characters like Chun-Li, Ryu, or Q, the frame data is different. And what you can actually accomplish on hit or on block, as far as guaranteed pressure, is also different. The different ways you can activate are 1, 2, 3, crouching medium kick, crouching medium punch, close standing medium punch, and then shoulder, for the most part. Otherwise, it's going to be fringe situations where you're activating off of a throw, or off of like medium punch, fierce punch, back fierce punch, or something like that. One thing you have to understand about Geneijin is that all of your good attacks, for the most part, that are not fierce punch or specials are going to be 3 frame startup or less. So what this means is that any given situation or any activation type, whether it's hit or block, as long as you are +4 or better, in most cases, so that you have a frame of leeway, that you will be able to either hit your opponent, or if they are blocking, force them into safe pressure. The first activation method is going to be 1, 2, 3, and this leaves you at +6. Now, this means that you could immediately go into far medium punch into crouching light kick, or you can go into far medium punch into fierce, or you can do Dekai. There's all sorts of different decisions that you can make. You can also immediately go low with crouching medium kick into crouching light kick, or just crouching light kick, whatever it is that you want to do. Off of 1, 2, 3 specifically, if you try to Zempo, you're going to be in a situation where, because Zempo is +5, your opponent is still in block stun. So this requires you to delay in order to make it work, or essentially do a different sort of input method. Now, you either can walk forward to get the Zempo, or you can do half circle back forward and then get your Zempo that way. Both have the exact same outcome, but they have slightly different input methods that can be useful for different people under different situations. So what this means is that if you do 1, 2, 3 and you go to activate, if you immediately do your attack because you are +6 and your opponent tries to super, like as Ken or something, you're going to beat them completely. And if you delay very slightly, you're going to end up trailing. Which, obviously, in most situations, he's not going to be able to do super into super. But it is a situation that can occur. Because of how this functions, this means that if you actually want to deal with your opponent's decisions, you have to red parry. Because if they get that activation, they're guaranteed to get their pressure started, and then they're able to go for their Zempo or force you into mind games that can deal with a lot more damage. The rest of the moves inside of Geneijin, like Shoulder, which has an 8 frame startup, Up Kicks, which has a 6 frame startup, and Far Fierce, which has a 6 frame startup. Also, Dekai, which has a 9 frame startup. All of these sort of moves have their usage, and it's the same thing with Forward Medium Kick and Universal Overhead. Both of these are 13 frames. But when thinking about these moves, you have to think about how they interact when you actually hit your opponent. So when 1, 2, 3 activate occurs, you are actually +8. It's the same thing with 1, 2, 3 shoulder activate, or just shoulder activate, where you are +8, or launching them with a medium punch or heavy punch shoulder. So what this means is that if you actually are able to do your combos correctly, you can start with up kicks off of 1, 2, 3, or you can start with a heavy punch, which I screwed up the Daipon loop afterward. But it's because of that extra little bit of wiggle room of frames that you can do this. If you didn't have that extra +2, it wouldn't really be a viable choice to go for this heavy punch because, well, it's too close for comfort for most situations. So the other situation that's common is, shoulder activate, right? In which case you are also +6. It's the same thing off of either light punch, medium punch, or heavy punch shoulder as well, where you are +6. And this forces the exact same situation that I was just talking about, and the opponent is essentially forced to make a high-low Zempo guess. So if you manage to hit your opponent with a shoulder, and it's not a launcher, so you're using light punch shoulder, you will be able to do pretty much any combo that you want. Go right into the Daipon loop, or up kicks, or whatever it may be that you want to do. And just like with anything else in the game, if you were to activate on a crouching opponent, you will actually get a lot more frame advantage. You get an extra +2 off of 1, 2, 3, and I believe you also get an extra +2 off of shoulder. So you are now +10, which is why doing standing heavy punch off of 1, 2, 3 against the crouching opponent is much, much easier, because you have 4 frames of extra wiggle room as opposed to only having the 2 frames against a standing opponent. So we're going to be taking a look at close standing medium kick. Now, as you can see here, this is +5. If I delay my activation slightly, it's +3. It can also go as low as +1. So this means that there is a lot of volatility in the activation time because of the variance at which you can activate based on your super jump cancel timing. If you're doing it immediately, you're +5. However, the most important thing to understand here is the difference in spacing. So if you were to do shoulder activate against Ken as an example, both of their shadows are going to touch Ken's with Yun's, and this is going to be consistent across the cast. Where if you do close standing medium kick activate, you're going to be one entire step or more before you even get to this point, which is Chun-Li's carrot throw range. So when you activate off of close standing medium kick, you actually have to take 2 steps forward in order to get your Zempo tension. Because of the distance that you're put at from here, you have to consider the attacks that are viable. So you wouldn't want to go for a crouching light kick unless you are recovery canceling and a micro step forward, because then you will be able to get your crouching light kick. However, because of the distance, usually it's going to be a far standing medium punch, or it's going to be a crouching medium kick instead. Now, the reason for this is because both of these have a 3-frame startup. It gives you 2 frames of wiggle room, or 1 frame of wiggle room in some cases, depending on when you have activated. If you're between +5 and +3, it's going to be relatively safe to go for these, and they are only parryable in one direction. If you were to go for standing light kick, as an example, even though it would work, it is high and low parryable, so if your opponent likes to guess, you are susceptible to losing to a decision that they can make, as canceling the standing light kick isn't really all that intuitive as far as timing goes, and in some cases you're going to still be able to get hit or thrown. The one thing of importance though about this is that when you activate, if you are +5 or +4, if you do a far standing heavy punch, you're going to end up in a situation where this is a frame trap. If they try to jump away, or if they try to press a button, throw, whatever, they're going to get hit. And it's the same thing for all the other sort of attacks. Even if you're +3, this close standing, or this far standing medium punch, or the crouching medium kick, is going to be a frame trap if they try to do anything. The only exception to this is if you are playing against Ken like I showcased earlier, and he can try to super you, in which case it will use the invulnerability frames, and depending on how positive you are off of your activation, it may trade or it may not, and it may straight just beat him. But if he tries to do like DP of some sort, your crouching medium kick may not, may work, but your far standing medium punch or your heavy punch or whatever may not, because something like a light punch DP is high and vulnerable. Crouching medium kick activate is +3. So this means that basically everything that you do is now a frame trap. The only thing that makes this different is if the opponent is Ryu, Chun, or Q, in which case you are +5, and you can technically force pressure against these characters. Because you're +3 on block, it's important to note that most of the attacks that you're going to be using are going to be 3 frames, which means that they are essentially a frame trap. Whether it's crouching medium kick or far standing medium punch, both of these things actually are only going to be frame traps if they try to do something. Now, if Ken tries to do a DP or a super or something, and you go high with close standing medium or a far standing medium punch, or you try to walk up for close standing medium punch, you're going to lose. Same thing if they try to super. However, if they do light punch, uppercut, just like in the other situation. If you were to go low again, you know, light punch and medium punch uppercuts are not low and vulnerable, so you can hit them. And this is where mind games sort of begin, is where the opponent wants to risk their meter, or if they want to deal with something like this. Not every character has the ability to try to like just throw out a super or throw out a DP or something like that in this exact situation though. And it's highly inadvisable to make these attempts anyway because it has a volatile outcome. Sometimes taking these risks can be worth it as the defender, but for the most part, it is just that. It is a very large risk that if Yun activates and blocks, you're going to take a lot of damage. And it's definitely not going to be worth that risk. If you hit them standing, you're going to be +4. Now because close to far standing medium punch and crouching medium kick and far standing light kick, etc. are all going to be higher startup time than crouching light kick and crouching light punch, you're not actually going to be able to combo into these because it's literally on the exact same frame. There's no wiggle room whatsoever. So the only way for you to do this is using a methodology that I talked about in another video, where your goal is to do crouching light punch or crouching light kick into your other decision, whether that's Dekai into Kara dash punch or whatever. If you want more information about this, you can go look at that video. Now, when you hit your opponent crouching, you're at +5. This means that all of your attacks are now viable. You have a 1-frame gap at which crouching medium kick will now combo. Same thing with crouching medium punch, far standing medium punch, etc. So distance-wise, it's important to understand what you're capable of doing. Up close, the easiest thing is to do the same sort of plink methodology, where you use a light attack. However, the further you are away, the less possible that is. And the only thing that you can do is something like this, where you go crouching medium kick into crouching medium kick something else. Usually into Kara Fierce, or again, Dekai into dash punch, depending on the situation that you are on the screen. It's very volatile, the distance at which you can actually get your crouching light kick to work. Because if you were to take one step back, you know, this will work, right? But distance-wise, if you were to take anything more than that, the crouching light kick whiffs, even though it's like just barely whiffing. So especially when on block, because you are only +3 and you are further away, this means you have to use things that are frame traps. You either have to hard commit to another crouching medium kick, in most cases, or you have to hard commit to a micro step forward medium punch, or a far standing heavy punch of some sort. Otherwise, you'll see players go for forward medium kick a lot off of this, or you'll just see them straight do standing light kick and then try to get into pressure. Because even though standing light kick will hit or will not hit here, in most cases, if you recovery cancel by holding forward during the activation time, you'll be able to hit with that that far standing light kick and get right into the pressure that you want. Now it's important to understand that light kick is only +9 on block, so the further you are away, you can get into range for this Zempo if that's what your goal is, but you do take that risk of this attack actually being parried high and low, which is why the frame trap, crouching medium kick, and far fierce are just as important. So one of the only other things that you can do is double Kara Zempo like this. And this is something that I do not suggest anyone practice because it is too specific as to where it can be done. That being said, you should know that it does exist. However, one of the really important things about this in particular is that the further you are away, you know, you actually have to like micro step forward in order to get this sort of a thing to work. So that's why it's so volatile and why you don't see a lot of people use this. The only people that you really see use this are players like myself or Shinta or Sho. And even myself, I don't go for this very often, and neither of the other players do either because of how specific the spacing is. Now, if you are extremely far away, basically, you know, max distance for this, you're too far away for basically anything to work. Even far fierce is not going to work. So at this distance, You basically have to commit to a Kara Fierce if you want to even, go for a frame trap of some sort. Um, but because of how far away you are, it's not really easy for your opponent to punish you either. They can try to jump away, but that is at a risk of its own. Because you can just simply go for a shoulder or something, and it will catch the jump. It's the same thing with the far standing heavy punch. If you time it correctly, where you're able to get the Kara Fierce, it will catch the jump. So this also means that if you want to get in, you actually have to do things like Kara standing light kick in order to get in for that pressure. Otherwise, you're going to be in situations where crouching medium kick won't even hit. So you'll actually have to Kara crouching medium kick or Kara crouching light kick as well just to get in as well. So from this distance, a lot of players might go for universal overhead, or they might simply just go for jumps. And this is an extremely volatile decision because of how each different dive kick and each jump option has varying decisions behind it. So from this far away, you can do jump in medium kick, you can do neutral jump dive kick, you can do jump forward, light kick dive kick. You can do a lot of different things and a lot of different timings. You can even do late jump medium punch, which is very hard to parry. But because of this jump, your opponent does get to react. Just like crouching medium kick, a close standing medium punch or a crouching medium punch on a standing opponent are both +4. So this means that your only option just like that is to use a crouching light kick or a crouching light punch if you want a combo. Everything else will not work. Distance-wise though, you are extremely close to your opponent for both of these attacks because the pushback is a lot less. So if your goal is to do something like condition your opponent to look for a Zempo off of activation, instead of doing a crouching medium kick activate, you could easily just do a crouching medium punch activate to stay closer to them. The distance at which you can actually combo, though, is basically just right in their face. Because if you try to do anything else, you're going to be too far away. You might be able to get a crouching light kick from a close standing medium punch because of the proximity that is required, but as you can see here, if you don't instantly cancel, your advantage is different. So, just like the close standing medium kick, the crouching medium or the close standing medium punch has different timing at which you can actually activate off of it, in which you have different advantages, which can even be negative. But if you are just canceling right off of the initial frame, it's not going to be any different. So it's important that when you are using these attacks that you are actually using it as an immediate cancel and not sort of trying to delay it whatsoever. Just like crouching medium kick, crouching medium punch and close standing medium punch are both +3 on activation if you do an instant activation. So crouching medium kick is +3, both of them are the same. The only difference is that there is slightly less pushback for the crouching medium punch versus the other two. And just like crouching medium kick, they are also +5. So this means that you can do basically whatever you want. You can use that far standing medium punch, crouching medium kick, crouching light punch, crouching light kick, etc. You can frame trap into other attacks if you want to, or you can simply go for Zempo, even on hit because of how close you are. Depends on the situation and how useful that you think that tactic might be.